Hi, everyone. I'm so excited. We've got Caitlin again, our breastfeeding guru. Oh my gosh, Caitlin, I feel like we can talk to you for hours.
Thanks.
You have so much information.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, 4 years or 3 years of information, really, plus all the time that you've been working with families. And we know that there's so many different scenarios with every family. They're so unique, and there's always guidance that you can give. So just share a little bit about yourself before we get into our hot breastfeeding topic of today.
Right. So my name's Caitlin Black-Allen. I'm a lactation consultant. I'm an international board certified lactation consultant. I was a teacher in my previous life before switching over to becoming an IBCLC because I got interested in women's health and how to help moms and felt like, this would be a really rewarding career to have. I've got 3 kids who I breastfed all of them. And then I've got 2 step kids as well. So I've got quite a busy household here. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's great. And I love sharing you because, we talked about this in some of our other podcasts, that it's really important to find the experts of what problem you're trying to solve. And if you are a breastfeeding parent, whether you're thinking about it or are doing it, whether you have challenges or don't have challenges, or just want to prep yourself, there's so much valuable information that you can get from a breastfeeding consultant. And, specifically Caitlin, I've always referred our clients to you because I really value your non-judgmental versatility, and just wanting to help people. So thank you for being so great and having all this wealth of information. Also, the hot topic for today is breastfeeding second or third time around. So when you have toddlers at home and being a mom of 3, I'm sure you experience that yourself.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that today. So first off, first time around, it's one-on-one. Second time around, it's a toddler, a baby,
right,
and you.
Right.
So maybe share with me the challenges that you and some of your clients have faced when they're breastfeeding the second or third time around.
Okay, so one that doesn't even involve the toddler is just that your milk supply with your second or third time around generally comes in sooner and fuller. So moms might experience like more engorgement or more fullness in their breast than they did with their first babies, because their first babies like built up all these prolactin receptor sites when they breastfed. And so those receptor sites are already there, even 3 years later, if you're giving birth 3 years later. And so your breasts and body already know what to do. And your breasts have already lactated before. So you might experience quite a bit more engorgement or fullness earlier on than you did with your first baby. So kind of being prepared for that is really important, and knowing just how to solve that engorgement and, putting on those cold compresses and making sure that baby feeds really well at the breast and gets you to a comfortable state would be, important to prepare for.
Good. Okay. And then we have the added other person. So we've got the 2 or 3-year-old running around while we're trying to still, second time around, I'm sure you can agree that it's still a challenge to get baby to latch. Every baby's different.
Absolutely.
So what challenges now do we have?
Yeah. So exactly what you said. There can be a challenge even with latching your second baby that you didn't have with your first. Or what I found with my second was I forgot that it takes time for babies to learn how to breastfeed. Like I was like, why doesn't this baby just latch? And I sort of forgot those early days where babies are learning how to latch. Like just because I breastfed before doesn't mean the baby had, right? So I had to kind of remind myself to have patience with this baby who seemed like he had no clue what he was doing, right? And then in addition to that, deal with the toddler. So some tips that I give for dealing with the toddler is really making them not feel like they can't be around while you're breastfeeding, right? So they want your attention, they want your love. There's a new baby in town, right? So the last thing we want to do is to kind of shoo them away as we're breastfeeding. So I think you need to be prepared that they're going to kind of clamber on top of you, touch your breast, look at the baby, stroke the baby's cheeks, right? And there's things that you can do to even include them into that breastfeeding time, because newborns, they fall asleep quickly at the breast. So you could say, why don't you, pet baby's head, because that helps baby feed at the breast. Or why don't you tickle baby's toes, because that helps baby feed at the breast. So then they feel like they are participating in that event and that they're being, the helpful big brother or helpful big sister. Another important thing is that you have a hand free. Like when you have a toddler nearby, you have to master breastfeeding with one hand only, right? So we can't be breastfeeding like this, and like holding everything as still as possible. We really need to be like, cradling the baby with one arm and having that other arm to like, reach for the sippy cup or reach for the toy, or even just snuggle in and cuddle that toddler as you're feeding the other baby, right? So that they feel that love as well.
Yeah, you just reminded me of my own breastfeeding journey, because I do have twins. They're 20 now, and my oldest is 22, but my oldest was 16 months when my twins came.
Oh
And
God.
I remember breastfeeding one baby in one hand,
Yeah.
rocking the car seat with my foot,
Yeah.
and reading a book or playing a toy with my toddler on this side. So you really do become so versatile and using all of your limbs to make the day work, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah. I always know when I walk into like a second or third time mom's house, because she's usually walking and breastfeeding the baby.
There's always something to do, for sure.
Right.
Now that brings, a couple things. So one is, what happens in a scenario, and you may or may not have some advice here, but where a baby is being distracted. You have your toddler running around and screaming and the baby's being distracted. What are some tips? Normally we might say leave the room if you can, but what if they can't?
Yeah. So that distracted age usually starts around like 3 to 4 months. So you might find that you can breastfeed very easily with your toddler in the room until about that point in time. And then what happens is baby constantly pops off the breast to look at big brother or sister, pops off again, looks at big brother or sister, and then just doesn't even want to feed at all anymore. Right. So I would say at that point, somebody had given me this advice, so I'm going to reshare it here, but having like a special box of toys that only comes out, that only gets played with when you're nursing your baby. Right. So I know we're all about like not too much screen time, although in COVID, we're only screen time. But maybe that's the time, that 20 minutes is the time that your toddler gets to, watch their favorite video on the iPad, or maybe you have a little box of dinky cars that your toddler is able to play with at that point in time, like an independent toy that doesn't need you to be there helping along, or that's the time for Play-Doh, like something that gets pulled out so that your toddler is like kind of quietly distracted and not really, running around the house, like, jumping off the couches, pulling on the curtains kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that time.
That's actually exactly what we did as well. Back, 20 years ago, we didn't have iPads and all these
Right.
electronics. So
Right.
our daughter had a little box of toys that she only got to play with when mommy was feeding the babies.
Exactly.
But now I know that, that is, you hit it right on the nail. If you are wanting to give some screen time and your children love screen time, save that for when you really need them to be focused on something else. So that's a great suggestion.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they'll be appreciative of when you do feed the baby.
Yeah. Now, do you find that the covers, do they help or do they hinder?
Often by the time the baby is around 3 to 4 months, it often hinders because they don't like things in their face, right? So they often will pull on the cover and yank it and stuff like that. Although with my middle child, I ended up taking a really soft blanket that became his blankie, and he still sleeps with it. And I would put it across my chest as he breastfed, and he loved stroking that blanket, and that became, his thing that he had to sleep with every single night, and he called it his mama. But so you can always do that too, especially if you're looking for, your baby might be punching you a lot or kind of distracted playing with your hair or your necklace and things like that. You can have a little soft blankie there for them to touch and feel.
Great. Okay. And I know another one, which is a really controversial one, but I'm seeing it a lot more these days, is when your toddler maybe wants to breastfeed again. So maybe can you share a little bit about pros and cons? Do it, not to do it? I don't know if there is a right or wrong. Maybe there isn't. But if you can share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So if you've weaned your toddler already, you're not currently breastfeeding your toddler, and your toddler is weaned, my best suggestion is when they ask to breastfeed, say okay, and let them latch on, because they won't remember how. So it's actually a skill that they do forget. drinking from a bottle or a cup is a completely different skill than latching onto the breast. And that was the advice that was given to me when I had my second. And sure enough, baby comes home from the hospital and my toddler, the baby started to cry. I said, I have to feed the baby. And the toddler said, okay, baby, this one, me, this one. And I said, okay. And he literally like put his mouth on my breast and came off 3 seconds later, like didn't latch, just put his mouth on, came off 3 seconds later and said, good, and walked away. And I never had a problem again after that.
Oh,
that was it.
Great. That's great.
That was it. Yeah. So that's if you've already weaned your toddler, right? If you have continued to breastfeed throughout your pregnancy to your toddler, like how you had your 16-month-old there, you can tandem feed as well. So you can continue to breastfeed your toddler and your newborn at the same time. Oftentimes I say, offer it to the newborn first so that they get filled up on the milk and the toddler gets to go on afterwards. But if your toddler's crying and, there's a meltdown, you can breastfeed both of them at the same time. But that's not an unusual thing. We don't see it a lot, like the older baby and the newborn feeding, but it can happen. And there's no like harm to the newborn. The newborn will still get the colostrum, that early stage milk, and your newborn will still get all the good fats and everything like that. Your body won't be producing toddler milk. It'll be
okay. That's good. That was going to be my next question. Does it change the composition of?
Yeah.
So if someone was breastfeeding their toddler, they're up to 16 months and they were pregnant and the milk never really stopped, it just continued. Does it readjust itself to give the nutrients to the baby?
Yeah, so it will be colostrum again, because like when you're pregnant, your progesterone and estrogen are really high. So it basically like stops the floodgates of prolactin, that good, lactating hormone, from opening up. And it's not until after you give birth that those levels drop and the floodgates are released, right? So your milk composition already has changed, and you might notice it while you're feeding your toddler because it's a bit painful as you breastfeed, because the flow is not there anymore. And many toddlers wean when their mothers are pregnant because the flow is not great anymore. Some like to stay, that's fine, but many will wean because the milk composition has changed. So you'll still have colostrum. It's just that with two of them nursing, your supply is going to change very quickly.
Sure. That's good. Yeah. And is there any concern of early labor being induced if you're still breastfeeding your toddler through pregnancy?
So if you don't have like any risk factors for having like a premature delivery, or you don't have any doctors haven't said we don't want this to happen, then you should be fine. Like if you have a history that you gave birth prematurely to 2 other babies, right? And it got kind of earlier every time, then maybe it's not a great idea to be breastfeeding your toddler, because we don't want those babies coming earlier every time, right?
Absolutely.
Or any like certain medical conditions that are associated with your pregnancy that we don't want babies to be coming early. But in general, no. Some like stimulation of the breast may cause some mild contractions. But yeah, if you're not at risk of that early term labor, you should be fine.
Oh, that's great. We've had some really candid conversation here today. I'm really excited that we got to talk about a lot of these topics, because I think people are scared to ask. They don't want to be judged again, right? So I think we talked about a lot of good information here. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm going to ask you that loaded question, the I wish I knew before. So something that you wish you knew before you had kids now.
Okay. And it doesn't have to be breastfeeding related, right?
Anything.
Okay.
And I know you and I both have so many different things. Something that you wish you knew that they told you prior.
Okay. I wish I knew that, kids go through different stages of development, and to not like feel like I have to force that stage of development. Like, I guess, I remember when like my first went through like his angry phase, and he was like angry at the world and everyone around him. And I thought, who have I raised? Like, why is he angry at everyone? And I need to change this right now. And I need to teach him that this is not right. And we can't treat people this way. And And he was 2, he was just like, he was going through his twos and he was stubborn and he didn't like interacting with people. And now he's like the sweetest little kid ever at 9 years old, you know, and causes no trouble at all. So like, I felt so much pressure to, you know, have that perfect child, right? And that child that was going to be so nice and giving and loving to the world. And he was displaying everything else.
For sure. And they have their moments too, right?
Yeah.
We talk about terrible twos, terrible threes, terrible 17s.
Right. Yeah.
But
like
you know,
having patience, right? Like being like, this is a phase and it's going to change and things will be better then, right? Like just, yeah, having more patience and going with the flow with him. I think I would, if I could go back, I would have done that.
Oh, that's great advice. I think like especially when you have multiple children, you're always comparing your children to each other, to other people's children. Yes. But you know, we don't always see what's behind the scenes either, right? I don't know how many times I've been told my kids are always really good, and I get them at home and I'm thinking, they're not being good right now, but nobody's here to see it, right? So we're always comparing our worst to everyone else's best.
That's right.
That's really good that you suggested to give yourself some slack. One of our other podcasters said the same thing, to give yourself a break. That's okay. That's so awesome. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love for you to share your website, your email, where people can reach you if they want to reach out and get some more help. And if you can share that with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I really enjoyed speaking with everyone today. So I work for Nurture Lactation Services. So you can find me online, on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can reach out to me via text, email, phone, and I can help you virtually or in person, whatever you like and wherever you live.
You're so awesome. Thank you so much, Caitlin. I really appreciate you spending the morning with me. And I can't wait to do this again with you soon. We have so many hot topics when it comes to breastfeeding. So everyone who's watching and listening, make sure to come back and have a listen to all of our podcasts and our videos. Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Hey, take care. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.